You never know how life's going to deal the cards, do you? Back in the middle 1970s, in another life altogether, I was in Brazil with Ros in a little boat that we had, sailing around, doing a bit of work, making the best of it. And we fell in with a young fella who was an engineer, who was doing pretty much the same thing on dry land in Brazil. And we became great mates, but as it is with sailors, it was time to move on. So long, mate. Never saw him again. And he came back into our lives just a couple of years back, my old mate Peter. And Peter now, after a long and very active life, lives on the island of Madeira. And he said, come and see me in Madeira. Let's have a bit of time together. So I decided I would, and here I am. But you see, Madeira is a bit of a special place for me, because behind me here is the big wall that forms the old mole that makes the harbour for Madeira, for Funchal. In 1970, in February, I sailed in here in a Baltic trading ketch, 90-ton ketch, that I had a rough old ride coming down from England in with a bunch of shipmates. We nearly lost our lives in the Bay of Biscay. We lost a lot of spars and most of our sails, and we stitched it all back together in Spain, and then we pressed on. We were bound for the West Indies, but we came into Madeira to put things together again because we'd had another beating. And we lay on that wall over there for 3 weeks, stitching everything together. And it was great. We were doing real sailorizing, and in those days there were none of these cruise ships. It was a different world. We were just alongside the wall, and the tourists used to come walking along the wall and have a look at us. And one of my mates came up with the bright idea. He had a flat cap on. He was working on the rigging. And these people were peering at him, asking what he was doing. And when he finished telling them, he took his cap off, put it down on the dock, and he had a sign inside and it said, thank you. And they all threw a couple of bob in. So we made some money doing that. It was great. And that enabled us to buy a few drinks and enjoy the town a little bit while we were here. And in due course, the boat sailed away. I got off. Here's the boat that I was sailing away on in those far off days. And there's another picture of her here, dried out, so you can see her beautiful bottom in Brixham. All the way down that winter, down the Bay of Biscay, down the Portuguese coast and on to Madeira. I was thinking what a horrible mistake I'd make to leave a girl behind me. That was Ros, who was to become my wife and my life's partner. Here we are arriving in Porto Santo just before Madeira, and me, time to get off. So I had to get back to Southampton somehow. Well, the boys had a whip round right here on that wall. The cook handed me a dozen hard-boiled eggs. None of us had any money because we hadn't been paid, and the lads had a whip round, and we got about £5 together, and they gave me that. And I got a sort of deckhand's job, I think, on a ship. I can't really remember the details, but I know I worked a passage to Lisbon. And from there, I hitchhiked home across the mountains of Spain and just saved enough for a foot ferry ride from France to England. So that was that. But it's amazing to be here now after all these years and see the changes that have happened in Funchal. Over here, there's a marina. There was nothing like it in my day. It's offering reasonable shelter, these boats. There's a certain amount of surge going on. I wouldn't really fancy it, but it's an awful lot better than the wall over there. And on the outside of the marina, you can see that there's a, well, the marina wall. People have painted pictures of their boats on it. These sea walls in the Atlantic islands have become quite a thing. Everybody who's sailing through likes to leave a memento of their boat on the wall somewhere. There's one of my boat, my old pilot cutter, on the Great Wall of Horta, which was painted by my crewman David Ellis in, I suppose, about 1985. I don't know if it's still there or not, but I'll have to have a look next time I'm in Horta. But here we are in Madeira, just looking at these. I love it, because you don't know who these people are. They've come in and out, they've sailed away, full of hope, full of despair, hating each other, loving each other. You just don't know. All you see is the evidence that they were all here. And it just makes you think, in a way, we're all brothers and sisters out there, especially when we come together in these remote islands out in the far Atlantic. Back in 1970, there was no marina and no wall there, so there was nothing like it. The town is still here, but it's grown enormously. I remember sailing into this great amphitheatre of buildings, and it was dark when we came in, and it was all lit up. It was like fairyland, seeing all those lit up houses in a great big horseshoe on the hills. A magical experience, really, and my goodness me, were we glad to get in. Anyway, things have changed. The shape of the cruise ships has changed horribly. There used to be the odd one coming in when we were here. I remember the Reina del Mar was here. What a beautiful ship. And the lads on there, actually, when they knew how to get back to Southampton, they offered me a berth in the forecastle. They said, we'll hide you away in there, you'll be all right, mate. But I didn't fancy doing time for stowing away. But they took my guitar home, so I didn't have to carry that. But I look at these ships now, and you know, really, I'm sure they're doing a fine job and bringing a lot of pleasure to a lot of people, but when you look at them, you lose the will to live. How can anybody design a ship that looks like that when you compare it with the old Reina del Mar or the old ships of the old days? It doesn't have to be a sailing ship. There were some wonderful looking steamships and motor vessels. These, I'm afraid, are not amongst them. But we can't turn back the clock, and we must make the best of it. I'm off now to find my old mate. He's sitting in a bar over there. I'm going to go and have a beer with him, and then we're going to sort some stuff out and take our wives out to dinner. Great to have a chat with you today. See you later.